Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin, back again with another reaction video, and we're taking another look at a Dharma Speaks video. This one is titled Hinduism Mythology Vs Reality. I thought this would be a good one to do, seeing as we've had a few comments of late where people blatantly point out that, hey, it's not, mythology, it's history. Yeah. We don't have like a stance. We let you guys decide. We're not here to pick sides on that, and we're just here observing, enjoying the content, and reacting to it. So maybe we can learn a little bit more through this video.
Yeah. Every time we learn a little, either way, even through our ignorance, stumbling around, we're learning.
Yeah.
So hopefully we all are.
Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. But with that said, let's dive in.
The devotional traditions of India have sometimes been judged as an inferior form of spirituality, a path meant for those who are less able to appreciate the deeper metaphysical truths. The various stories told are written off as ancient fairy tales, mythology tailor-made for the simple-minded and superstitious. The narrations of how the boy Krishna lifted a giant mountain on his little finger, of how Hanuman the monkey flew in the sky, of how the goddess Durga mounted on her lion killed the shape-shifting demon Mahishasura, all seem entirely ungrounded and irrational. But these stories form an integral part of the spiritual culture of Hinduism. So how does one look at these amazing, fantastic tales? Essentially, one can approach them in any or all of three ways. Some can be seen entirely as symbolic, others as based on historical events, and some as an actual reality to get absorbed in. For example, in one purana, there is the symbolic story of how Lord Shiva and Parvati are given a fruit by the celestial sage Narada. A challenge is set to their two sons Ganesha and Murugan, that whoever can go round the whole world 3 times will be declared the winner. Upon hearing this, Murugan sets off immediately and races around the world on his peacock. Ganesha, on the other hand, stares lovingly at his parents and walks around them 3 times. Shiva and Parvati are puzzled by his actions, but Ganesha explains that for his brother, this external reality is his world, but for him, the world is defined by his parents. Having been moved by this sentiment, Shiva and Parvati declare Ganesha the winner and the embodiment of wisdom. What this story highlights is that the fruit of life is not found in conquering the outside material world, but in honouring and delving deep into our own truth and what we connect with within. Hindus have realised that words and philosophy can easily be forgotten, but a story can drive the message home with far more impact. This tale is one of many examples of how various deities are placed in a certain context to symbolically deliver a specific spiritual lesson. The Mahabharata and Ramayana, however, are vast Indian narratives which are classed as itihasa or histories. The Mahabharata tells the story of the great feud between the 2 royal cousins, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, while the Ramayana describes how Lord Rama rescued his wife Sita from the tyrant Ravana. While there are many details and spin-off stories which have been developed over millennia, there is plenty of evidence from manuscripts, from archaeological, astrological, and even botanical sources which support the core series of events that have been told. Having said that, the critical point is that the emphasis on historical accuracy has little importance to the devotional seeker. A devotee is not looking to find truth in the outside world of facts and events, but in the inner world of his relationship with God. This is why Hindus have felt free to embellish, adapt and retell stories according to their bhava or devotional connection. This is clearly evidenced with the Ramayana. The original Sanskrit version was written by sage Valmiki, a contemporary of Lord Rama. But
I thought one thing I would just note after that last comment there, so far I haven't really gotten that, because sometimes I feel like through the comments there's a sensitivity towards accuracy on a lot of stories, and this was kind of saying that Hindus are free to elaborate.
Interesting point.
And it's not been kind of what I've noticed. So
Well, just like there's different sects of all different religions. There's some religions where you go into the church and everybody's rolling around on the ground, and there's another one where you go and everybody's in stuffy suits and minding their manners.
yeah.
So there's different ways of interpreting that break off into like subsects of religion. So different people might be perceiving it different ways.
Yeah.
And
You also made a good point offset that, people who are more inclined to also complain or make a nasty comment are typically going to be like there to write it down
Right. So
quick versus someone who's ready to hit a like button.
Right.
Or
If
something.
you like it, the answer's simple. I like this.
Yeah,
but when
yeah.
when you feel the urge to correct, you're more inclined to make a comment. So that's just sometimes how it breaks out. But we do like, if you're positive, please feel emboldened to make a positive comment because they're good too. Good thing to balance out.
Yeah.
I love the idea of, in the different ways of viewing this. It said some people view it as an account of what happened. Some people view it as symbolic. Some people view it as pertinent to your reality right now.
Yeah.
But what if you approached it with a compound mind? What if you looked at it and you were like, it can be both a historical account, it can be both a symbolic, and it can be all three can be happening right now and pertinent to the moment I'm in. Yeah. Meaning if I'm listening to a story about Shiva and I just by chance pass an icon in the world that reminds me of the story I'm in, maybe it's a story about Shiva that involves a cow, and I pass like a giant cow statue, let it all mix together, the history, the synchronicity of it, and it's now we're rooted in a spiritual realm.
Yeah.
The physical is spiritual.
Yeah. And somehow also paradoxically, reality and mythology both at the exact same time.
Right. And so some people, again, going back to the original point, some people might like what we say and say or just passively observe it. But somebody that's got an issue is going to be like, no! No, and somebody got to say something about this. No!
Yeah.
That is such a common thing for somebody needing you to perceive things the way they perceive it.
Yeah.
No, I need you to think about this the right way because there's only one right way. Look at the sense you get from the spirit of that. One is graceful and accepting, and the other one is rigid and domineering and tyrannical.
Yeah.
That's how it appears to me. Those are the two senses. You are absolutely free to think whatever you want. Everybody is free to be how they choose to be, whether that is legalistic or kind of a flake.
Yeah.
You're free to be what you want to be. We're just thinking and talking.
That's right. Also, cool total side note, I like the fact that he showed that aerial satellite view of the broken down, I think it was a bridge or pathway from the Hanuman story, because we had asked when we did that reaction whether or not that was like, was there archaeology around? And people were like, yeah. So it's cool to see that.
I know one more tiny thing. In the story where Ganesh circles his parents and the other one went around the world.
Yeah.
I think that's the order it went in.
Okay.
Yeah. It reminds me of, sometimes in other things you'll hear a story where the main character of the story essentially does something that's like, well, wait a sec, what about that other guy? Did he get back after going around the world 3 times and be like, what do you mean nobody could give me a heads up?
Yeah.
Like, I just went around the world 3 times.
Yeah.
And I like to think that his parents had something in store for him, or that, if you don't understand, divert to symbolic answer.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can imagine someone being like, well, those weren't the rules. You know, like if we weren't clear about the rules, like little guy went around the parents 3 times. I was off doing the actual task that was explained.
Yeah.
You remember in the Bible when Jacob or whichever brother it was, like covered himself in the older brother's, he disguised himself as the older brother to earn the birthright.
Yes.
And then he just gets it. He tricks the blind old dad and gets the birthright, and he went on to make a great nation out of it. Yeah. And I think about the race story where he knew better, and he did the thing, and it even charmed the parents. Even saw the sentimentality of it and deemed him the winner.
Yeah.
But what about the guy that went around the world? Depending on how you get back and interpret it, he probably learned his own lessons. Lest you get bitter about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You're like, all I had to do was circle you guys. That's interesting. I still learned some stuff, and my parents will still probably accept me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the ego, the human side, or whatever. Part of me doesn't like the fact that the guy still got away with it, even after doing the wrong thing.
That's what I'm saying.
But, also, there's a big long story towards all that too. I'm sure he had to face all the trials and tribulations that came along with getting that reward.
Right.
So
right, exactly.
Over time, numerous other Ramayanas began emerging, Perhaps the most popular is Tulsidas' retelling in Hindi, known as the Ramacharita. Whilst keeping almost all the key events of Valmiki's narration, Tulsidas adds a far more devotional flavour. He explicitly opens up the divinity of Lord Rama and focuses on the love and the surrender of the devotees around him. The fact that this has become for many the principal account of the Ramayana shows that it is the devotional potential of the narrative and not the factual accuracy that carries the most importance. Hindus have recognised that constantly listening to and remembering events suffused with devotion impacts and elevates the individual. But for this to work, one cannot just see the story as a metaphor, nor can it be seen as just a past historical event. Instead, it must be perceived as a reality that is current and completely relevant to one's daily life. To understand how this works, the first thing to do is define what we mean by reality.
What is real? How do you define real?
Morpheus.
If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
These electrical signals in our brain are what we can call our objective reality, the world of matter, objects and living beings.
That right there is significant, that little monologue Morpheus had. And don't push yourself too far, like if you think you're entering the danger zone and you're like your sanity's at risk, I would say ease back. You don't have to expose yourself to so much stuff, but it is remarkable sometimes when you'll be questioning reality itself. You'll be like philosophizing about what is really real, and you're shaking loose every shackle of perception there is till it's like you're floating in there's no ground, there's no roots left. You are floating now in abstraction. And I think about the person, like, what takes the wheel when somebody goes, well, if that's what I have to accept, then I'm crazy then I'm gonna go crazy. Like, they threaten you. And what it really is the ego gets behind the wheel, and it's like an identity takes hold and says, I'm not willing to, like, I know how it is. Can't you see, so many times strewn throughout everything we do here, I hear the voice of the ego stepping forward and demanding that things are a solid, scalable way, and that it can't be that abstract, that it involves the reality. Like, I'm reading a story about Hanuman, but it's teaching me something happening in real time. It's a living word. It's the living scripture, and that it's like, has to even do with so personal. It's one mind, one God thinking this up, so it's all synchronicity. And I imagine somebody resisting that, and I feel like the thing that often steps forward isn't what it disguises itself as, which is like rationality. I'm sorry, you can't get me to stop being rational and using logic. It's like, that's like a chain around your neck, though. Don't you see that can be like a chain preventing you from floating?
I don't. My instinct here, when you were kind of going into that, I was like, that you're talking about like a real thing. And me sitting on the other side of this chair was thinking a lot of people don't even get that opportunity to get to a point where they start getting uncomfortable. It'd be nice if more people could have the ability to get to a point where they could start questioning some of these things. But life is very full. I think one thing I've noticed recently is that our lives are so full that it's very hard to even look at these things.
That's why I say no pressure. When you're little and you start off school, sometimes they start you off gentle. Welcome. It's very nice teacher, kindergarten teacher comes in. Look at these little toys. And it slowly complexifies over time. I'm not against somebody that wants to stay at home base. I'm not against somebody that wants to like bask in the peace of where they're at. But what does happen is when it's time to move on to more complex topics, more awe-striking things, it's you get uncomfortable with home base. You're like, I'm bored of home base. I'm ready to move forward. And it's like, well, then behold, chew on this one. What if it's not what you think it is? The nursery, take the walls down and it's a movie set. Something bigger going on.
External physical world can be tested scientifically with reason and evidence. But the experience of life is far more than just an external world. We have thoughts and feelings. There are desires and fears. As a result, every individual also has a different way of looking at the external world. Along with the outside facts that our senses perceive, we we all carry an individual narrative of how we view the world and what life means to us. This lens through which we view life is our subjective reality. As Ganesha showed earlier, the fruit of wisdom is not gained by incessantly trying to piece together evidence from the external world, but in delving deep into our own truth in the right way. The various bhakti saints and masters have declared and demonstrated that the ecstatic divine states of love are attained by allowing one's view of life to be taken over by these divine narratives. By intensifying our one-pointed devotion, gradually our subjective world becomes filled with thoughts and feelings of God. Little by little, our ego and material desires begin to wither away. Eventually, through grace, we achieve a state of love which perforates the boundaries of our subjective reality to realize our ultimate relationship with God, a relationship which reveals that even the outside objective world is nothing but a part of God himself. But the cold rational mind which insists on facts and evidence from the outside world will not be able to experience the results of devotional practices.
You and I and every other living creature are machines of ineffable complexity. This complexity and its powerful illusion of design is why so many people succumb to the God temptation, the temptation to evade, by invoking a designer, the responsibility to explain.
Dawkins sees belief in God as a cowardly escape from the need to explain the universe. But this is because his goal and quest is completely opposite to that of a devotee. As Pascal stated, the mind does not understand the reasons of the heart. To witness the profound effects of the various devotional stories, one has to abandon the limited logic which incessantly points to the external world and instead use the intelligence of the heart. There needs to be a suspension of judgment and a sense of innocence which allows one to enter into the reality of the story. Having said that, we should understand that innocence does not mean vain sentimentalism or naivety. The Bhakti saints and teachers were some of the most intelligent, grounded intellectual giants. There are huge bodies of literature dealing with the proper science of devotion, outlining the different stages through which a devotee goes through. They have laid down the regulative discipline practices, as well as described the different metaphysical states of consciousness. All of this has been laid down for the devotee to follow and replicate. We should understand that a narrative controls thoughts and perspective. It arouses emotions and dictates behavior. The story we tell ourselves in our mind is the story of our life. Every individual has a choice to decide what story they want to cling to. That decision provides the direction they walk in. Rather than allowing the media which incessantly delivers negative, sensationalized stories to dictate their narrative, a devotee is one who seeks to contemplate on the stories of the divine. The scriptural devotional tales are not based on vain fantasy, but are specifically designed to uplift and change the individual. A devotee gives himself to the stories which glorify his chosen form of God because he wants to increase the love for his deity. For that kind of devotee, the stories in scripture are not just fiction or imaginative tales, they are a reality. And by reality we mean that these events did not just happen, they are happening. They are not just historical, they are current, here and now.
I was thinking about a perk of open-mindedness for somebody that's maybe struggling, right? Like, let's say there's a real issue with, like, you're starting to get hints that reality is about unity, and you're like kind of feel the call to stop being so egotistical and competitive, for instance. And you're like, but I don't want to give that up. Like, I don't feel like I should have to give that up. I do want to, like, kick butt and be recognized for being better than people. I'm sick of this kumbaya. Everything's, mushy gushy. Hard facts, shut up. Like, there's hard and fact rules of life. And I'm imagining that person sort of struggling, wrestling with that.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the appeals of open-mindedness is some of the things that you see hinted at you to reach higher in your spiritual walk. It's like, you ever consider that some of the things you're being called to do are things that your heart really does want that you're yet to realize it wants?
Yeah.
Like, imagine the call was to, like, be a very philanthropic person, like, generous. And you're like, ew, I don't want to, though. Like, I'm too selfish for that.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm grossed out by it. Maybe if it's some way that I can get it on Instagram and, like, benefit from it, then I'll do it. Then I'll be generous if I can succeed myself. And if you're being called to like selflessness, because in so many of these religions, there's this call to selflessness, and you're like, it just seems terrifying to me. It's like, what if you don't know yet what you actually want, and you have to start to open yourself up to like, maybe I want these other things. The ego yet again returns, and it's like, you're making me go crazy. You're hypnotizing me with your crazy logic.
Yeah.
I'm not letting go of my ego. But that's the thing, so often at the heart of these things is the message being communicated.
Yeah.
Is reduce that part of yourself. Let go. Relinquish grasp.
And also take comfort in knowing that the system knows what it's doing anyway. So I think when you're ready for that transition period, it will happen. Yeah. I think it will just it'll naturally happen. So
right, and it could happen to all of us together.
That's right.
This is best illustrated by the scripture known as the Bhagavad Purana. It is filled with wonderful stories of Lord Vishnu's various incarnations, as well as the expressions and examples of his various devotees. But the real climax comes with the telling of Krishna's birth and pastimes in Vrindavan. We read about the love that his mother Yashoda had for him. We witness the friendship of the cowherd boys, and above all we are told about the intense, romantic love of the simple milkmaids. The Bhagavad continually depicts Krishna as the glorious, infinite divine personality who is the original cause of all causes, but at the same time we see how he mischievously stole butter from different houses, how he played with cowherds and danced with the gopis, and of how he heroically defeated every demon that threatened them. We hear how he stole the hearts of all the residents of Vrindavan who thought of nothing else and depended on him at every turn. By reading the stories of the Bhagavad Purana and meditating on the pastimes of Krishna, our reality becomes enveloped by these same devotional sentiments. The various pastimes of Krishna no longer become events that took place thousands of years ago. They are events which are going on now. When we look at our life, at work or at home with our family, we begin to find that a small drop of this love that is in Vrindavan begins to infiltrate everything that we do. God, as Krishna, becomes a living force in our world. Just as we hear about the devotees who surrendered to him, we also learn to surrender our lives to him. We learn from the arrogance of certain personalities, and we try to overcome our own pride. We see how devotees withstood suffering and didn't flinch in their faith. We understand the need to be selfless and completely humble. These stories become the narrative in our minds and hearts. They become the reality through which we view life. Added to this, we perform various spiritual practices. We chant and sing Krishna's name continuously, allowing the vibration of the divine mantra to steady and purify the mind. We worship the temple images and offer our prayers to them. We surround ourselves with other like-minded individuals who are also focused on loving God. We go on pilgrimage to holy sites, which carry the ambience and energy of the love of Krishna. In this way, our whole world becomes centered on Krishna. Everything we do is about loving Krishna and serving him. The longing to know the truth, to contact and experience God firsthand, leads us to intensify our love and surrender. Eventually, as the masters and saints have shown, through the narrative of these stories, we reach a state of consciousness, a state of pure, unconditional divine love. This is a love which dissolves the ego and any sense of material desire. It is a love that allows one to have the darshan or vision of God in ourselves, in others, and in all creation. It is a love that gets readily distributed selflessly to the masses. It is a love that transports us to the ultimate transcendent divine realm.
Yeah.
Many thanks for listening.
I just gotta say, props to Dharma Speaks. Dharma Speaks hasn't released a video in like 2 years. I think the videos that Dharma Speaks do are incredible. I'd love to see a comeback.
I love that message at the
end. But
end.
I know, nearing the end, I was like moved by the message. I loved it. And like, I think one of the heart-centered themes there at the end was that, like, what are you so worried about, like, making sure that this is considered or recognized as historically accurate? How is it, like, being embodied in your soul? What are you doing with this information? Does it necessarily matter whether or not it's myth or, 100% historically accurate? How has it permeated your soul and what's it doing?
Right. What's the result? Yeah. Like I don't care if you're a devotee of this or that or whatever, man. You know, what are the fruits of your sowing?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, just makes me kind of think of this character I've been coming across, Neem Crowley Baba. Maybe some of you out there know who I'm talking about. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But feel free to throw in the comments what you think of that character, Neem Crowley Baba, and what that was about and how you regard him within this whole thing. You know? Because some of the stories I've heard are pretty awesome about him.
Wow. All right.
I think he was maybe a devotee of Hanuman. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, very fascinating stuff. We just continue to grow one drop at a time in the bucket. And hopefully you guys are enjoying our reactions on these videos. If you are, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share this with a friend, and everyone, until next time, stay spiritual.